Chapter 14. New Habits. Work patiently and prepare so that when the opportunity finally comes knocking at your door, you'll be equipped to make the most of it. Lex Anderson. When I first visited the shooting range while at basic training, the drill sergeants had been strict in their instructions for firing the M16 assault rifle. The only right way to shoot, according to them, was the Army's way of shooting. I recall lying on my stomach on the firing line with 50 other men, rifle aimed in my hands, being in the dirt for hours. In the blistering heat, in torrents of rain, in a foot of snow, the conditions didn't matter. The drill sergeants paced between the silent bodies like guard dogs, ready to pounce at the slightest mistake. 1 minute we were given the instructions, the next we were ordered to shoot. On the state-of-the-art range, it was simple for drill sergeants to see which recruits had listened and which had just done their own thing, thinking they knew better. Being that it was just the third or fourth time in my life that I fired a rifle, I thought I would be behind the class curve. I was only 17 years old. Most of the other men were older and owned guns at home. Many had hunted since before puberty. From the first day of basic training, I had heard these backwoods types bragging about the day they would take their new Army assault rifle for a spin and show off their skills. Some even placed bets. What I had not expected, however, was that before the first day at the range was over, I would surpass many of these experienced hunters. Some of these cocky recruits were quickly dubbed by the drill sergeants as the worst shooters in the platoon, and over the next couple of months these recruits pumped out hundreds of push-ups at the range for poor shooting scores. Some of these recruits were even threatened to be recycled through the next basic training class if they didn't shape up quickly. I couldn't believe I outscored those men. They had been so sure of themselves. The reason these fine, lifelong hunters almost failed the shooting portion of their training was due to the way they had learned to handle the rifle as children, and it didn't measure up with the Army's standard of shooting. When they were taught as children, they had been taught improperly just as their fathers before them. Over time, these bad practices had become bad habits that the Army had to break before reteaching the Army's proper shooting methods. This was easier said than done. The reason I caught on so quickly was that I was a blank slate. I didn't have any bad habits to break. I didn't need retraining. When the drill sergeant taught me a certain way to shoot, I took it as law and immediately put it into practice. In fact, while on the range drill, Sergeant repeatedly said they disliked teaching recruits who thought they already knew how to shoot. The bigger of an expert one thought one was, the worse of a student. Yes, they loved ignorant, fresh recruits like me. The kingdom of God operates no differently. When new Christians are led into the wilderness to be trained, it is with the intention of breaking old ways of thinking and lifelong bad habits. And believe me, everyone has bad habits. In fact, the longer the person was alive before coming to Christ, the more bad habits they accumulated and the more ingrained these habits had become. The main bad habit every person has to break is misplaced trust. Long ago, we learned to overly trust in ourselves, in the wrong people, and in the wrong things. Our faith is distributed everywhere but where it was designed to go. For instance, all my life I was taught that when I became an adult, I would have only myself to rely on for my income, food, shelter, and everything else I might need to survive day to day. If I didn't take these matters into my own hands, I was warned nobody could do it for me. I'd starve, I would be homeless, I would be the dregs of society. Parents teach this to their children, teachers drill this into their students, democratic governments command this of their citizens. It is the norm, it's what's become expected. But one of the main intentions for the wilderness is redirecting one's faith into the right things, specifically, in God. Here's the definition of faith. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. For by it the elders obtained a good testimony. Hebrews 11:1-2. The elders are all the saints who went before us. By their faith in the things God was doing in their lives, they were victorious. If you read the remainder of this Hebrews chapter, it shows that the faith many of these people demonstrated had to do with trusting God regarding their divine purpose. Faith in God is vital to achieving one's destiny, but without faith it is impossible to please Him. For he who comes to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. Hebrews 11:6. God rewards those who trust and honor him. The reward is our relationship with God, our primary purpose. And the more we learn to trust and honor him, the closer we become to him, and the deeper the relationship. The reward is living your appointed life. The second purpose, living your best life, is a gift from God derived from our faith. One of the most significant intentions of the wilderness is to build our trust in God, to teach us that our all-powerful, all-seeing, and all-knowing Father in heaven knows better than we do about what's best for us. In the wilderness, you will learn to trust God in every part of your life. And in the wilderness, where you saw how the Lord your God carried you, as a man carries his son, in all the way that you went until you came to this place. Deuteronomy 1:31. This place the Israelites had come to was the door of the promised land. In their case, their promised destiny. Before then, God went out of his way to show his people that he would always be there to help his children. Through the experience of the wilderness, God built their trust in him. The people witnessed God fighting for them daily. There is a New Testament story where a man was asking for the healing of his child from an unclean spirit. Christ first addressed the man's faith. Jesus said to him, "If you can believe, all things are possible to him who believes." Immediately the father of the child cried out and said with tears, "Lord, I believe, help my unbelief." Mark 9:23-24. Christ then healed the child. When a person is about to come to Christ for salvation, God gifts them with the required faith to believe and be saved. After salvation, this small measure of faith is tested and grown and matured through one's daily relationship with God, as well as the journey through the wilderness. For the man in the story, he had faith, but his faith was small. His faith was new and untested, like a new Christian. For what he lacked, he asked Christ to complete. Christ's response to help the man's unbelief was by healing the child. Yes, faith is about the unseen. However, faith is grown through our experiences with the Lord. Faith is matured by trusting God in a particular area of our life, and then subsequently seeing God working the miraculous in that very area. Unbelief is cured by our daily experiences with God. We see God move on our behalf, and it emboldens us. The wilderness retrains our bad habits as well as helps us with our unbelief.